So yeah, so the idea I think is really important. If a woman is, let's just say over 40, like 50% of women have no retirement savings. And oftentimes they go through a divorce, the kids are now grown up and they're like, oh shoot, I'm already over 40, whatever your age is. You don't have any retirement savings. And so what do the financial planners tell you? Oh, we'll just invest more. Let's put like $2,000 a month away. And that's like, that just never made sense to me. Like, well, if you couldn't do it up to this point, where are you going to find that money?
Hey everybody, this is Lorelia Brown-Phillips, host of the Never Lose a Deal podcast. And today I had the honor of speaking to Ginger Faith. Ginger Faith is a real estate investor located in California, and she is what they call the Airbnb Super Host. I had the great opportunity to talk to Ginger about a topic that I feel is very near and dear to my heart, and that has to do with should women invest in real estate over the age of 40? I think this is a great topic for women to listen in, as well as men too, who may have an interest in it. So, what I want you to do is tap in and listen in on a podcast. See you on the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Never Lose a Deal podcast. As always, this podcast is for real estate investors who want to diversify their financing options when it comes to real estate. And so today I have a special guest that I am going to introduce in a moment. Her name is Ginger Faith. But before I let her introduce herself to the audience, I just want to give you a very small synopsis of her background. She's going to let you know more about it. But let me just tell you, Ginger is not a newbie when it comes to real estate. She's been involved in real estate over 30 years. She's a real estate broker. She is the CEO of Grand Canyon Properties, which she's going to tell you more about that. She's flipped over 52 homes. She's an Airbnb Super Host. She's been featured on HGTV, as well as she runs Your Wealth Network, a meetup for women. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Ginger. How you doing, Ginger?
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are at this time. Good to see you. Thanks for having me today.
All right, thank you. So, Ginger, please, in your own words, tell the audience about your experience and who you are as a real estate investor.
Well, I started investing in real estate in 1994 by buying a six-family Victorian house, renovating it, pulling cash out, and buying another. And this was before it was on TV. There was no podcast. It was just I looked in a magazine for houses for sale. I wanted some cash flow, and that's what I did. And the house cash flowed right away, even though the interest rates were 15.5% and I paid 2 points. It still cash flowed because I got a great location and a really cool, ugly house that once it was painted and jazzed up a little bit, I immediately had renters lining up at the door. That was my start. I did my first flip in 1996. Bought it from a foreclosure from a credit union, and bought it for $17,000.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and it was a mess. And flipped it and for $84,000 back in the day. So, and that's how I started. Mortgage broker in 2001, real estate broker 2005. Just keep growing, getting my hands dirty, physically and mentally. Just getting things done, moving, action. And started flipping. I moved to California in 2001, but I didn't start flipping until 2009
Oh,
because the numbers didn't make sense to me. I'm such a cheapskate when it comes to the numbers. I'm like, I don't want to be spending things when I was looking at what can I rent this for, as opposed to what I could buy it for. The numbers didn't work. So in California, we got a situation in 2009 where there was opportunity, and so I started flipping at that time and buying some investments.
okay. It's interesting that you say in 2009 because it's similar to my story, around that time, for the audience, if they're, not familiar with, that's when in 2008, when the banks, the whole real estate, pretty much the bottom fell out. And I share with people that that is when I started my real estate journey. When people running away from real estate, I ran to it. And that was really my segue into real estate because at that time I was buying, real estate owned properties. So it's interesting that you say in 2009 is when things really, started to pick up for you. So I was going to ask you when, when you said about that flip. So was that flip in California? Because I know those numbers in California, have always seems like as long as I've been involved in real estate, California numbers have always scared me. So was your first
Right.
flip in California or was it somewhere?
No, Massachusetts, outside Boston.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now you know your geography.
yeah.
That could have never happened. When I moved to California in '01, I looked at the numbers and like this, it just doesn't make sense. But a lot of people were flipping properties, but they got burned really severely in '06, '07.
Hmm.
And I just didn't have the stomach to see that, in that intensity. I was a mortgage broker at that time. So at that time I was processing and originating over 500 loans.
Hmm.
So that was great too. Great experience, phenomenal experience to really understand the workings of the banking system through the mortgages. It was amazing to do that. So that was a very good, powerful education.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and we've spoke before, the podcast and, and I just want to let the audience know is that one thing that really stood out with Ginger's experience is she has experience with working with women who, have the interests to get involved in real estate, but not only get involved in real estate have the ability to become, wealthy and affluent. And I want, Ginger to give us her, explanation or, idea of what would that look like for a woman who's listening to this. Because as I mentioned to you, Ginger, I'm a woman of a certain age, I'm over 50, and a lot of my audience is at that, either going to be 50 or over 50 and they are interested in real estate. And so if you can, give the audience, some idea of what would that look like for a woman.
So yeah, so the idea I think is really important. If a woman is, let's just say over 40, like 50% of women have no retirement savings. And oftentimes they go through a divorce, the kids are now grown up and they're like, oh shoot, I'm already over 40, whatever your age is. You don't have any retirement savings. And so what do the financial planners tell you? Oh, we'll just invest more. Let's put like $2,000 a month away. And that's like, that just never made sense to me. Like, well, if you couldn't do it up to this point, where are you going to find that money? Where are you going to find the money? Right. So real estate, although right now real estate has its challenges, we've got higher labor costs, we've got higher inflation. Right now, our economy is weird. But if you really focus, and I've seen this, this is happening right before my eyes. I'm on my way, literally, as soon as this podcast is done, I'm on my way to a flight to Orlando. I'm meeting with about 200 real estate investors. 40 are in the Diamond Inner Circle, and they're bringing down $1 billion a quarter in commercial real estate. So
Mm.
not to say people, and it's profitable. My friends have profited greatly. So I'll give you a great example of one way to do this. My friend who had very little knowledge of real estate, very little. In 3 years, she flipped a 56 unit garden style apartment complex and pocketed multiple seven figures in 3 years. And she was asking me for advice during the whole thing because she didn't know anything about real estate. And after it was done, I was like, wait a minute, look at that. So it started to make me realize that, real estate still is an opportunity for people. And there's two things. It's commercial is valuable for many reasons, but it's a huge learning curve. But depending on your demographics, every woman needs to really think where do I live? Where are the opportunities where I'm at? It's going to be different in California than it's going to be in Omaha, Nebraska. It's going to be
Yeah.
completely different,
Mhm.
right? But there are two factors. Basically, you need to either think large, like a large building that needs renovating. Okay, now if you do that, you need backup because you can't do it by yourself. You need to get a team that you trust, and you need to start like connecting with networking meetings and people that know more than you.
Mhm.
Because you're going to need manpower to do that. Or you can think volume, right? So you can do flip, 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 do multiple flips, be super organized if you're a systems thinker. But the fact is, I'm seeing this with several women that I know, they're able to just amplify retirement savings in a very short period of time. The concept is to compress time. How do you compress time? Just think bigger or faster, and then you compress time. You focus bigger or faster. And those are the general broad concepts of how it's possible to actually get a retirement like quickly, and I recommend it. I recommend it. I think it's a phenomenal path if you just have to get yourself in gear and, like Tony Robbins says, take massive action. But start networking with people, start figuring out what people are doing in your area. Be aware, subscribe to different, go on to like CoStar, or look into multifamily, and just start learning as much as you can, as quickly as you can, and make it a 10-year plan. If you're 40, you got plenty of time, but the time will slip away very easily,
Exactly.
all sorts of things.
And that advice is similar to what I tell clients, is because it seems like what you said is to find a vehicle that, like you said, that can, speed up the process. And the commercial side of real estate can offer you that opportunity. Like you said, it is, a big learning curve. And so, on this show, we talk a lot about financing. And so what would it look like, using your friend example? Like you said, she bought the garden apartment. What would that look like on the financing side? So if a woman is saying, hey, you know what, I would like to retire wealthy, but what do I need to start off with? What does that look like? So can you share something like on the financing side, or if you know anything about, like you said, your girlfriend who took down a garden apartment, what was the financing like? Was she using private capital, using, private funds, or was she
Mhm,
leveraging herself, her IRA
mhm,
or 1K? So
mhm,
if you could
mhm.
share something about that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the first thing you need to do realistically is do a personal financial statement, PFS, right? So you got to know where you're at. Some people get nervous because they don't like the numbers, and so they look the other way. Right? So you want to look squarely at the numbers, because when you focus on something, it grows,
Yeah.
right? So start with your personal financial statement. They have templates everywhere. I've got one. Someone could reach out. I'll give you a personal financial statement template, right? So you look at, okay, what do I have? What kind of debt do I have? What am I looking at? And then you have your benchmark. So that's number one. Number two, you find the deal. Number three, generally speaking, the lenders are going to be 75% if they find it's a good deal. And then you have to come up with the balance. So that would be you, your friends, your somebody else. Best place for the money is an experienced investor who you trust. That's the best way, because they're going to help you not make mistakes. So the bank can protect you because the bank has an underwriting team, and they're going to stress test it if they're a good bank. And generally in commercial, they are. Right? They know they don't want to lose their money. So they're going to stress test it. So if you find another investor, and then you can just like piggyback off them, maybe you won't make as much, but you shouldn't make as much because you're calling on them. Maybe you're the grunt. Nothing wrong with that. That's phenomenal. You're going to have a PhD over a couple of years, right? But you're going to get something. You negotiate hard for your work, and you get the best that you can, but you get the money from an experienced investor, so they feel comfortable. But you have to have their trust as well. Trust is a huge thing. That we could have a whole podcast on trust, right?
No.
Because without trust, if you've shown yourself to be not trustworthy, that's going to be a hard mountain to climb.
Mhm.
But if people trust you, they'll look at, and hey, just start now, right? Start now. Find people, act trustworthy, keep your word, all that stuff. That's huge. That's huge. So I would say that's probably the best way is to start connecting with people who have more experience than you, people who are trustworthy. You make yourself trustworthy.
Hey, this is Lorelia. I don't mean to interrupt today's podcast, but I want to share something with you. Head on over to my private Facebook community. If you go on Facebook to Never Lose a Deal, put that in the search, you will find this private community. It will also be in the show notes of today's show. And primarily, this community that I've created is a community of real estate investors who like analyzing deals and trying to figure out what is the best funding or financing source to be able to execute and move on those deals. So if that sounds like you, or if you're looking for a community of like-minded people where you can analyze deals, I want you to head on over to Facebook, put in Never Lose a Deal, and there you will find the private Facebook group, or you can click the link right here in the show notes.
So I would say that's probably the best way is to start connecting with people who have more experience than you, people who are trustworthy. You make yourself trustworthy. Learn, try to analyze a deal, bring a person who knows what they're doing, a good deal. They're gonna talk to you. They'll talk to you. They may bring in the resources. Even if in the beginning you only get a strong finder's fee, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that, right? You've learned and you keep going and you get another finder's fee until you get someone to work with you, right? So there's a thousand ways to do it. Just be creative and be willing to work and analyze deals and learn what a good deal is.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I tell, investors, when they feel like they've gotten to that point where, they feel like the money is something that they can't grasp or get access to. And I always share with them, I mean, value can be exchanged in a whole number of ways, figure out what is your value add to someone else? Because if it's an investor who's actively investing and still looking for deals, there still can be a value add that you can add. Maybe you have access to, inventory that they don't have access to, like you said, other relationships. So there's always other entry points that don't always have to be monetary. And that sounds like what you were saying, because if if you are a trusted individual and people have, know that reputation of you, then it's just a matter of aligning yourself with the individuals that can help you support what you're trying to do. So, thank you. And I know you're a super Airbnb host. Can you share with what is that? What does that mean? Because I know what Airbnb is, but what's a super Airbnb host?
They have their criteria. And basically you need to have consistent 5-star reviews. If I get a 4-star review, my eyebrows go up. Okay, what happened here? Right. You need to be responding to clients when they come in and they say, hey, how far are you away from this wedding venue or whatever? You need to respond quickly. And those are the big ones. You need to have, but there's a certain metrics. You have to have a certain number of people who come in, like I don't remember what the metrics are. Airbnb will tell you exactly what it is, but you have to have so many bookings in so much time. So they need to see that you're moving, you're getting flow. But the stats are, and I don't remember the stats, but I remember listening to a podcast with the head marketing guy from Airbnb, and he said that the super hosts get most of the business. They get 20% more business. I think it was more than that, but a lot more.
Like an algorithm. Like I guess if when you go into Airbnb, you'll come up as one of the best hosts.
Right. So I had a situation recently where two situations where because I'm a super host, there are other people who don't have the time or bandwidth but they've got a property they want an Airbnb. So they hire me as a property manager, right? But except for an Airbnb. And I had two situations recently where one came in and they just said, you put it under your status, right? So, I mean, this is like literally yesterday. So I went on as a traveler, and I dialed in the coordinates, and this came up number two. Her place came up number two in the Livermore area. Now, another client um, decided they wanted to hire me, but they wanted to stay. They were already renting it out from time to time when they went on vacation, but they just wanted to make sure somebody was managing it while they were there. They stayed on their own platform, but they didn't have the volume that I have. And we didn't get any bookings for like 3 weeks. And so I went to them and I said, hey, maybe we need to switch this, bring it onto my platform so we can get pushed up higher in the algorithm. Because now people, like, I have all of mine are guest favorites, right? And then super hosts. And so now people feel more comfortable renting from me because they already know I've got a track record of 6 years now. I've got over 500, I think 586 reviews at this point, or something like that. So that's how that kind of works.
Now, do you have like a target group? Like I know some people, who are in the Airbnb space, they may say, well, a lot of times, my target audience or traveling nurses or, you know,
Yeah.
families. Is there a target group that, that stays primarily at your properties? Like,
It just depends. It depends on the location. So I have one in Cleveland Heights. It's 4 miles away from the Cleveland Clinic, which is world renowned. So that target really is people who come to the clinic for healthcare, literally from around the world, and they want to be with the family. They don't want their sick person, their family member, to be in a hotel and it's uncomfortable. They want to be able to make food together. They want, so one person recently said, would I mind if they brought a Barca lounger into the living room because dad would be most comfortable after his heart surgery when they got released to stay there. And I said, of course, they're going to do a rent-a-center in and out. Right. I said, sure, do that. So that's that. I have weddings in a couple of mine, big time weddings. But it's location, right? Near the wineries.
now
I've got,
that's in Cleveland, right? The
yeah,
West.
right. That's in California near the wineries. We've got the big time weddings,
Oh,
you
okay.
know. And so it just depends. It depends on the location. It just kind of gravitated, it orients towards what is there. And of course, you let people know what you have to offer and you try to tailor it to that. For the one in Cleveland, for example, I wanted it to be in a really super, super safe location where a nurse, for example, wouldn't mind going there at night. If they had a shift where they were coming in late, they'd feel comfortable, right? So, and with the winery, like the wedding venue is a completely different vibe, right? So we have one we just set up yesterday, and it's got like the dressing, like long dressing table with mirrors, and you can hang up the gowns in the back, and it's all like set up so the girls can all sit up, together. So that's pretty fun.
Okay. And so how, I always say Airbnb seem to be dictated by the city or state they are located in. Like I know here in New Jersey, there's been certain cities that really hammer down on Airbnbs on,
Mhm.
they got this rule and that rule and they put all these rules in place that pretty much strangled Airbnb, owners. And so
Mhm.
have you came across that with some of the locations, the cities and states where some of yours are located?
Yeah, well, I'm dealing with that right now in El Dorado County. And so I'm actually shutting down two of my Airbnbs because of that. They just became too onerous, too difficult. But it's a phenomenal piece of property. So I'm converting it to midterm
Mhm.
right now. Right
Oh,
now. I just put ads in for midterm furnished rentals. I might, with any luck, I might end up making more money because if you can, it's a gorgeous house. It's spacious, beautiful, and it's got quite a few beds. So, it might end up working out. But yeah, I definitely have. It's not a happy time. That's one of my wedding venue places, and I have so many beautiful. I always have the guest books. I have so many beautiful memories with people saying, my wedding this year. Somebody sent me their wedding photos. It was just a joyous home, and it makes me sad that I have to convert it. But it just became too difficult. I always felt like they were, I mean, I live right near the code enforcers. I mean, I live the property is right near the code enforcer and the town hall, and so they make me my morning stop. They make my morning stop. They're like, oh, they come on my property, poke around, like, oh, is anybody here? And then they, so it just became difficult. I had the proper licensing, and then they created a new license, and then
Yeah.
another one, and then they didn't tell me. They didn't even tell me. They didn't mention it. Right. So I thought I had a business license, transient occupancy tax, all my taxes were paid. Then they made a VHR tax and then another tax, another license. They didn't tell me that they were, just they could have just sent me a bill and said, and you need to do this, but I would have done it, no big deal, right? But instead, they just send me nasty grams, and so you don't have the right licensing, you got to shut down, and it just became just oppressive. So I decided to, you know what, I've got a beautiful piece of property, let me just pivot. And that's the name of the game in real estate over 30 years, right? You pivot. I have pivoted so many times because the market changed. I was a mortgage broker. I still am. I've got my license, but I'm not processing all day and originating all day like I used to. That's used to be my whole shtick, right? 2001 to 2008, like that's all I did, right? And before that, it was apartment houses, and then it was flips, and then then the short sales dried up, and then another thing comes up, and so then Airbnb becomes a wonderful opportunity because you can maximize the footprint. But now it's midterm rentals. Now I'm going to dip into the midterm rental space, see how that by bed, co-living, so yeah. So now I'm doing the co-living. I'm investigating the co-living, and I'll see how that goes. I think that like, having a growth mindset and just knowing that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay because you're going to figure it out, you know.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, the pivot is definitely is so key. It's interesting that, for as many years I've been involved, like you said, things are always moving, like nothing is constant. Change is going to happen. And you'll see people, I guess they get so emotionally charged. I never know the situation. Maybe it's that, maybe they're just, highly leveraged in one particular asset class. And if that changes, it's like they just leave the industry. And I'm like, but
Mhm.
then when you come back, now you gotta, like all those years you lost because you just left based on emotions. Like you said, you just gotta pivot. You just got to, I mean, that's the same thing with me when in '08, like I said, that's when I got started in real estate. And at that time I was got started as a wholesaler, was wholesaling REO banked on properties. And that was before Dodd-Frank even like came in with the whole
Yeah,
whatever. But it changed, but I pivot. I learned how to do double closes to get
yeah.
around, start using business entities and things of that nature.
I
So
did the same thing.
it's all in the
Oh,
pivot.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
well, thank you so much, Ginger, for sharing your wealth of knowledge. But, before we end this podcast, share with the listeners as well as the watchers how they can reach you. You can share your social media, and your website. So if you can share that with them.
Yeah, Ginger Crystal Faith is my name, and I think I'm the only real estate broker with that name. So I'm pretty easy to find, just Ginger Crystal Faith, and I'm online. I post daily personally on my Facebook page, but my assistant helps out with posting the videos and podcasts. I have a YouTube channel where I have videos. I've got, I think, 160 videos now. So a couple websites. So, but yeah, Golden Canyon Properties is my company. And yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, anywhere that you want to find me. But if you want to connect with me personally, like if you want your personal financial statement, if you want the template, go ahead and message me on Facebook. That's probably the quickest, easiest way to get me. And so hopefully somebody will.
And just for the audience, all the links will be below this video. So I'll make sure I have all the links for Ginger. You could just click on the links. But Ginger, I know you have the meetup group. Is that meetup group still active? Do you still run the Women's Wealth Network?
At the moment, I took a break. So I am like rethinking it. I think I took a break about 3 months ago. I was doing a major remodel on my house and had so much going on. I just needed to take a breather. But yeah, I haven't had a loyal following on that. And I'll most likely pick it up, but just not probably not right away. I think I need another 6 months to kind of get into a few other things, always getting my fingers into something. So
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. As always, thank you, Ginger, for, coming on the podcast. But as always, this is Brown-Phillips of the Never Lose a Deal podcast. And I will see you in the next episode. Have a great
thanks,
day.
Loretta.